I welcome everyone to come to an upright and balanced posture for meditation. Remembering our intention. Why should we meditate? Whether it be for calm, for peace, for insight, for full awakening. Remembering how precious this life is, how rare it is to have a chance to be together with friends, to sit and meditate together, having the support of this small online community of people practicing together. Making the decision to let go of any excitement or worries from the day, letting go of any plans about the future, just making the determination to stay in the here and now, to be in the present moment, to be open and receptive for what is arising through the senses. It's all we have, really, what comes in through the senses. Waking up our connection with the touching sensation, feeling the weight of the body pressing on the chair or the cushion, feeling the upright and balanced posture of the body within the room, the space where you are sitting. Making a note of the touch points that are easy to notice. Could be the feet on the floor, where the hands are touching, where the clothing is touching the body. Where the air is touching the skin. Just aware of touching. If any other sensation is noticeable, could be a sound or a taste or a smell or something visual. Notice that. and aware of the quality of the mind also. Is the mind connected with these sensations? Or is it wandering away or falling asleep? Every contact, every sensation, mind is aware. The sensation coming through the gateway of the senses. Keeping awareness as still as we can. If a sensation is pleasant, or if a sensation is unpleasant, treat them all the same. The mind is just watching, just aware. And if the breath is noticeable, aware of the touch of the breath, where the breath is touching the body. If the mind begins to lose the meditation, overcoming that hindrance to connect with the object of meditation, the sensations in the body, and the sensation of breath. Remembering to stay aware. Investigating those sensations and the mind which is aware. Bringing energy to fix awareness on the object. Gladdening the mind. Tranquilizing the breath and tranquilizing the mind. Letting go of all the hindrances and entering concentration. With solid equanimity. Whatever comes up in meditation, keeping the mind equanimous to just be aware. Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. Dear friends, I promised that I would continue to be reflecting on the subject of virya, or energy. So what I'm going to do now is talk at you for a little while, and then I'm going to let go of that and open it up for some conversations. The Pali word is virya. I put it in the chat. This means energy, effort, vigor, diligence, persistence. We see this word and this idea very frequently in the teachings, in the early texts. The Buddha definitely wanted bhikkhus to raise the level of energy that they bring to the practice, not to be lazy. One thing that's kind of interesting about this is virya, is that in the different lists that are used to organize the teachings, virya appears again and again. It's an aspect of right effort in the Noble Eightfold Paths. It's one of the four right efforts, the four padhanas. It's one of the four roads to power, the iddhipada, one of the five faculties, one of the five spiritual factors, one of the seven factors of awakening. And then those lists are all part of what's called the Bodhipakkhyas, which is the Bodhipakkhya Dhamma, are given in a few places in the suttas as a list of the different elements that are part of our path of practice. I'm going to put that in the chat. So there are 7 lists with a total of 37 factors, which are sometimes translated as the requisites of awakening, or the supports for awakening, the wings to awakening. And energy appears again and again in this list. And then outside of that, a group of teaching tools, you see in the late canonical book, the Buddha Vamsa, which is about the previous lifetimes of the Bodhisattva, that virya is one of the 10 perfections. And this is developed in the, it's greatly developed in the later Buddhist traditions. And then in the Abhidhamma, virya is one of the 52 mental factors, the chaitasikas. I'm going to swing back to this later to show you how actually helpful the Abhidhamma explanation is. But I want to ask first, it seems kind of confusing, it's so redundant with these elements of the Dhamma appearing over and over again in different lists. So there's the elements of the Dhamma, that's all the factors that could come up, and then the outline of the Dhamma, which is a nesting set of lists that fit together in some way as the teaching tools. So what is the purpose? Why doesn't he just give the energy in one place? Okay, and I have an answer for that. My answer is that the Buddha was concerned about the operation of the human mind. He was concerned for the spiritual quest that was shared by religious seekers everywhere. Why do we suffer? Is there an escape from suffering? What's the pathway to the end of the suffering? And in order to get to his answer, the Buddha needed to understand our human psychology, why we think the way we do, why the mind works the way it does. And it's complicated. I'm going to share a screen to show you how complicated the mind is. Okay, it's this complicated. This is a contemporary rendition in by scientists. This is Edelman and Tononi. They're a book about the factors of consciousness, and they have the belief that that consciousness is not a mystery that is unanswerable by science, but that it's actually possible to explain how consciousness arises out of this wet material that we have inside of our bodies, comprised of the brain material and the nerves. And so they modeled it all. They used computers, they used instruments, they used tools, and I'm not going to try to explain this. I just want to say that just thinking one thought involves a lot of complicated activities among the wet material substrate, which is or this body, which the mind is connected with. I'll give you the citation for that picture, if I can find it. Okay, it's lost. So the Buddha was not using computer modeling, nor was he using electronic instruments or all of this scientific gear, but he was using introspection to observe his own experience. And the answers that he gave have this unique quality that they are grounded in a reality which is able to be known through the senses. This is a unique and wonderful feature of the Dhamma that we follow, is that it's able to be known through the senses. It's able to be experienced directly. If some thinker or some religious seeker had some experiences and they came up with one description of what they thought they were understanding through introspection, they might come up with like one list. And then if they would make the mistake of saying, okay, this one list is the complete answer, and then try to build out their entire spiritual quest based on what can be inferred or built up out of that one list, they would likely be led astray. There's sutta where the Buddha points to different teachers that had some, you could say, some superhuman experiences or some deep meditation experiences, and they saw part of the picture, but they didn't see the entire picture. And then based on that partial picture, they thought they were enlightened and came to an incorrect conclusion because they mistook a part for the whole. So my idea is that these various lists that are handed down by the tradition that were given by the Buddha in his teachings are like a framework, a variety of different kinds of framework that enable us to examine our lived experience from various angles, but always grounded in the reality that can be known through the senses. And since energy is something that is pretty universal, a feature of the operation of the mind, well, then any kind of a way we look at it, we're going to see energy is going to be one of those factors. In what I'm going to forward, I'm going to try to bring to mind the natural energy that we have apart from the energy that's directed towards awakening. So this energy or virya is a universal factor. Even animals have it. And I could think, well, in particular, I'm aware of the energy that parents have when they have to take care of their children. How much vigilance, how much care, how much persistence, how much mindfulness, how over many, many years, day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, they have to be continually aware of what is needed for the healthy growth of this child, and be looking after that and providing it. It could be that because of some, accident that happens or some a stressful event that happens, that the parents need to go far beyond what they even would think they were able to do when they decided to have that child. They wouldn't have such strength or courage they would have to face potential difficulties of being a parent. And of course, the same thing is true with other kinds of endeavors. I used to work at a job, and I used to have to, methodically go to the office and be there on time at 9 o'clock and pick up my pencil and start my work and do my work until lunchtime, and then have lunch and then come back and do some more work until it was 5 o'clock. And that kind of a routine energy, it's very useful to me to remember what it's like to get to work, so that when I'm sitting in meditation, if the mind is drifting or if I didn't feel quite sure like what I'm supposed to be doing, I can remember that simile and say, well, time to get to work. In the dictionary, virya, that's the factor of energy, is associated with another noun, vira, which is referred to a hero. And it seems like the vira is referring to a man who is a hero. It's called in the ancient grammars as manly energy. So this really bothered me, because I like to think that there is also a kind of like a special kind of energy that a woman has, as well as the special kind of energy that a man has. And there's things that are like a universal that any human being has or any sentient being has as sort of aspects of their energy. But I didn't feel quite well about, is it true that virya is a manly quality that's not shared by women? So I went to the Theravada to look up all the enlightened Arahant Bhikkhunis who would speak in their verses about their virya. And I only found one occurrence of the word virya in the entire Theravada. That was the Arahant Bhikkhuni Mahapajapati, the founder of the order, who was speaking of her admiration of the Buddha and her admiration of the Buddha's disciples. So it's even there, it's not quite clear that she's talking about a woman's virya. Nevertheless, the basic root meaning of virya is exerting or striving. And we may consider that since it's a basic path factor, it's equally relevant for any gender. Now I showed you a poem. The path is called straight. Without fear is the destination. The carriage is called silent. And wheels are right effort. Conscience is the rails, and mindfulness the upholstery. Dhamma is the driver, and right view runs ahead of it. And whether it be a woman or whether it be a man, whoever travels by this carriage shall draw close to Nibbana. That's one of the references in the early text that is speaking directly about the universality of the Buddha's teachings. It could be that later on that this virya idea came to be more gendered over the several hundreds of years following the Buddha's parinibbana. There was a big culture both in India and worldwide where the status of women became in relationship to men. Virya became in the Latin language virtus, which was a Roman ideal of heroic manly virtue, originally the quality of a warrior, but then came to be the quality of a citizen or a ruler, and including all kinds of leadership qualities like prudence and wisdom and stability, as well as strength and courage. I read on Wikipedia that this virtus, this manly virtue, is very rarely attributed to women, children, or slaves. Only once in a while, in relationship to some particular woman who's exemplary, did they speak of that. But nevertheless, we're going to consider that virya is universal. Jumping out of the early text to the Abhidhamma, which states this very clearly, the patana in the Abhidhamma qualifies, this is a list of 52 mental factors which can accompany a skillful or unskillful state of mind. So there are 52 chaitasikas, and the states of mind are called chittas. And our culture can make the state of mind stronger. Is one of the 6 factors that's called occasional, meaning it can go either way. you can have energy for an unskillful state of mind, as well as having energy for a skillful state of mind. If your energy is directed towards sensual desire or greed, then it will take you in that direction and lead you away from awakening, lead you to continuing to go around in rebirth. But if the virya is directed in a wholesome way, then it can become the path vector of samavayama, which is the carriage that leads us to nibbana. When virya is rightly directed, a super mundane object or super mundane goal, then it becomes a path vector. So we've got my idea. This is what has worked for me in my practice over the years, is that I remembered the kind of energy that I had before I knew about Buddhism, like the energy of going to work or the energy of that I so much admired and have so much gratitude for the energy that my parents exerted on my behalf. So I try to take those qualities and then shift them towards the noble goal, towards the super mundane object. I talked a little bit on this last Sunday on the Sutta study. I talked about the 4 padhanas, or the 4 right efforts. And I'm going to circle back a little bit on that because we had some technical trouble, so that I'm not pleased with how it came out on Sunday because of so many technical glitches. And I want to just give a nice statement about these 4 right efforts. There's a refrain that goes with each of the right efforts. In Pali, it's Chandam Janeti Vayamatiyang Arabati Chittang Paganhati Parahati. One makes a resolution, strives, starts an endeavor, holds the mind up, and fixes the mind on an object. I'm going to go through this one by one. Chandang Janeti, so Janeti, Jati is birth. Janati is to be born. Janeti is to cause something to be born. What are we causing to be born? The Chanda. Chanda is another kind of a factor that can go either way. It can be either skillful or unskillful. So Chanda is a wish, or a will, or an intention. When we direct it unskillfully, we see in words like kama, chanda means sensual desire. But when it's directed skillfully, it's described as a righteous will or a righteous zeal. It's called Dhamma chanda. That's having enthusiasm for the Dhamma. I believe actually Bhante Sujato is translating chanda in this case, this positive righteous chanda. He translated it as enthusiasm. I believe from my own reflection that chanda arises at a moment where there's something that crystallizes in our understanding of a situation where we know clearly what to do about it. So many things in life, understanding, we're not just understanding things because we want to be an encyclopedia and have an intellectual understanding. In reality, most of the time, people are involved in doing actions for the welfare and happiness. And so our understanding is in service of being able to behave skillfully for a purpose. And so there's something just about that moment when we understand the situation and say, I can do this. So, for example, if I were getting dehydrated, it could be that the body is something's happening in the body because of dehydration, getting a headache, getting tired, getting uncomfortable in some kind of way. And then just at some point, we realize the meaning. I'm thirsty. And then when we know that we're thirsty, we have a refreshing sip of water or a sip of tea. But this intention just by itself is a very weakened for at least the other elements to be strong. So then the next word in this sentence is vayamati, which, see, all the dictionary definitions are confusing because they're all about striving and exerting. So the dictionary definition is struggle, strive, endeavor, exert yourself. But I can pull some more vivid sense out of it. But realize the root meaning is yama. It's yama. So V and A are making it more intense. Those are prefixes that intensify the meaning. Yama means a restraint. It means to you restrain yourself or control yourself. Literally, it means to hold something by means of a string or a bridle. The word yama comes up in terms of machinery, like a sugar mill, or a ship has like the oars of the ship that are organized in a certain way. Or in the poem I read about the carriage has got, the wheel, whatever it is that is the horses and the way that it's steered and the way the wheels are attached to the carriage and the different parts of the, so that's kind of like the yama. So we can think of vayamati as what it's the fact used to control or train our intention to make it powerful and effective. Or if we were using a parental simile, Chanda and Janeti, the parent gave birth to a child, and with vayamati, they trained the child. Okay? Then we come to viryam arabati. This is where we initiate the hero. The virya, I've said it before, that virya is referring to the manly strength of a hero. This is this arabati. It comes from the root labha, which is then changed to rabha. And it means getting or acquiring something. It refers to taking hold of something, beginning taking something, embarking on something, starting something. So you formed your intention, you got your carriage, and now you want to start your quest. So that's where the viryam arabati comes along. Elsewhere, there's another sutra. It's called nutriment. It's in the Bojjhanga Samyutta of the Samyutta Nikaya. And I didn't get the exact citation of it, but it's easy to find if you go to the Bojjhanga Samyutta and look for the Ahara Sutta. In the explanation for energy, it gives the element of arousal, which is the initial phase of energy, and that's the aramba dhatu. So that's very similar to arabati, aramba. So this is the starting energy. And then the other two parts of energy in that other sutta, the Ahara Sutta in the Bojjhanga Samyutta, it's the element of endeavor, nikamadhatu, which is explained by the commentary as being the intermediate energy. And then the last one is called parakamadhatu, which is translated as the element of exertion. It's like, I don't think I would ever know that arousal, endeavor, and exertion in English, it's not giving me any kind of a clear understanding of what it means. But if we think of starting, continuing, and then going to the full intensity, then we've got an idea. And it's very important to start. Even when a beginner in meditation, when the mind is wandering and they come back to the object of meditation over and over and over again, maybe in 1 hour, they have to come back many dozens of times. They lose the meditation, they've got to come back to it. So they're starting again and again, they're starting. And then the next one is the continuing. And that's how, mother doesn't just feed the children once. She feeds them again and again, day after day. She continues feeding the children day after day until they're able to feed themselves. And then that exertion, that's where you go out to the maximum and you discover that you're capable of something beyond what you knew you were able to do before. Then the last phrase is Chittang Paganhati Parahati. So this phrase is telling us what is the domain for our endeavor. This is where we're taking it from the ordinary energy, especially taking it towards the supermundane object, towards the noble energy, which is an aspect of, which becomes samavayama, which becomes the part of the Noble Eightfold Path. The domain of our endeavor is not the battlefield, it's not the kitchen, it's not the workplace or the job. The domain is this mind, the chitta, the process of thinking thoughts, intentions, the state of mind. This is the domain that we have to cultivate. We have to learn how to keep this in mind, how to be able to notice, even to have the ability to perceive, to know what is the state of mind, even having the ability to know what are we thinking of, to notice the thoughts when they arise, to notice the thoughts when they disappear. So then the Paganhati is literally means stretching forth, like reaching out. And I take this to have an idea that you direct the mind towards your butt. So you could direct the mind towards a noble object. We've been reading recently about the destruction of the asavas. And one of the phrases that we see in suttas is that as one is entered into samadhi, one is entered into meditation, and then direct the mind towards the action of the asavas, or direct them realizing this is calm, this is peaceful, this is excellent. Cessation of all formations. So this Paganhati is directing the mind. It could also mean, another meaning of Paganhati is taking care of something. So it could be that we're taking care of our state of mind. And then it has a third meaning, which is applying something or directing something. So it could just be as simple as applying the mind to the object. So if we're deciding we're doing awareness of the touching sensation, we're applying the mind to that object. If it's awareness of the breath, we're applying the mind to that object. So that's the Chittam Paganhati. And then the next one is Chittang Padahati. And that, the translation I gave you at the top says fixing the mind. The Dha, Parahati, is based on the root Dha, which we love that root because the name of our community is Dhammadharini. We are the ones who Dha the Dhamma. That means we carry the Dhamma. We hold the Dhamma. This means to hold the thoughts. It's got like a stability. If you think vichara is in some explanations where you connect with the objects, and where vichara is where you have sustained attention to the object. So that's the parahati. Dharini, carrying something, is when you put on your jacket, you're carrying the jacket. When you memorize the sutta, you're carrying the sutta. So in this way, the mind is stabilized on the object of meditation. So the idea then with this last phrase, Chittang Paganhati Parahati, these are telling you how to steer the energy, how to direct it beyond the ordinary level up to the level of becoming a path factor, of becoming part of samavayama. And so now I have talked at you for a certain number of minutes, and I would like to welcome any comments that anybody may have. If you have a question, welcome to put your hands in Anjali or put the hands up signal. And also, if anybody in the room has a question or a comment, I welcome that. Okay, Richard.
Thank you. This idea of virya, manly strength. I've often thought about this myself because I feel that, like when Ananda asked the Buddha, are women capable of attaining nibbana? And he said, yeah. Okay, so I've always felt that everyone should be equal in the Dharma. That's just my particular view. And so I think what they mean by using that term is like, there's a physical, generally speaking, a physical difference between men and women, in the sense, especially in the old times when we didn't have machines and stuff like we do today, right? So men did the heavy lifting, you know what I'm saying? As opposed to, women did a lot of the, what do you call that? When you make cloth and everything, very fine work. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think the idea is that it's something only a man can do. It's that this takes a great effort. Someone has to, focus their mind, and give it a great effort, like that. Anyways, that's just the way I came to think about it. But, others may have, some other view. Anyway, thank you.
Yes, well, I didn't want to raise that question to say that I was advocating that virya is gendered, but I think we need to sort of like overcome something that existed in the culture to realize that. In a certain kind of way, I really appreciate in monastic life when the bhikkhus have their communities and the bhikkhunis have their communities, that the bhikkhus have a chance to bring out their gentle, polite, nice qualities, because they're not like having the women do that for them. And then the women being in in our own community have got an opportunity to exert leadership instead of just and also to do, the physical lifting and getting the exercise. I do know that in many cultures, women do a lot of lifting and a lot of carrying, and they use the physical body strength, but it may be in connection with things that are close to home, so that in addition to pushing the plow, they're also carrying the baby. And so that takes a lot of strength. Okay, Damon.
Oh, thank you, Ayya. I think you may have pointed out that there's some connection between this factor and right effort as it's expounded in the Eightfold Path. If you haven't made that connection, could you say something about it, whether there's
Yes.
a connection? Yeah.
When virya is directed to a noble object or a noble purpose, then it can become samavayama, or right effort. When it's directed towards an unwholesome purpose, then it's just energy, ordinary energy. So energy can go either way, but when it's rightly directed, then it becomes right effort. So the two things are quite closely connected. But that's the importance of the steer. And even within the path, there has to be a kind of like a guidance, in the sense that somebody who's too enthusiastic to be exerting like too much energy in their practice, and they're making themselves tense and nervous, and they're not reaching the goal, they're not making progress in wisdom. This is the story of Sobhana. He was just meditating and meditating and meditating and walking and sitting and walking and sitting, and he could trying and trying, but he wasn't getting enlightened, and he wanted to know why. And the Buddha said, well, you're trying too hard. You need to moderate the effort. So the effort has to be like guided with a right, in a balanced kind of way, so that it's not going left, not going right, just staying in the middle as it should. So that's another aspect of steering it.
Okay. Although the Piyadasa document that you were referring to for the first couple of factors seems to make the stress that this energy is to the point of zealousness in pursuit of the Dharma. One is to be zealous and not indolent in any way.
Yeah.
So
when we think of being zealous, I don't know if you think of somebody being a zealot or a religious fanatic, but that's also not what's intended. I think that Piyadasi is a modern teacher, and he might see that modern people have the flaw of being too lazy, and that's why he keeps telling them to try harder.
Okay, but the energy you speak of here is not a. It's not a. Well, Piyadasa seems to, in the document that you referred us to, seems to imply that this is not a physical energy we're referring to. This is a mental energy that's, so that even if one is sickly, one can still have great energy.
Yes. And thinking takes up a lot of energy. Worrying takes up a lot of energy in a way that's maybe not productive. but directed thinking does definitely uses energy, and it's not muscular energy, but it is definitely using energy.
Thank you.
I want to give a special welcome to one of the people here in the room, and that's Ramesh. Ramesh has just joined us and is going to be visiting our community. He's in quarantine at the moment. So in a couple of days, he's going to be able to join us and be sitting in the room with us. But now he's sitting in his kuti in the dark. Ramesh, would you like to say anything or ask a question?
Sure, just one moment. I'll turn on the light. Just one moment. Just.
Okay.
I think the main, I don't have a question per se, but I was just sort of feeling and thinking through what you were sharing, and it's just a reflection that there's so much energy we, or many of us, put into endeavors that are sort of cyclical, you know, where it just kind of keeps feeding off of itself, feeds off itself, or perhaps it's even, I don't even mean it inherently negatively, but like entropic.
Mhm.
I am certainly part of that. That's a practice that I have constantly, partly why I'm here to learn and to grow. I guess the question I do have a question is how through that, how can we break that? and not merely as a thought form, I want to break it. Okay, I notice it coming up, I can break it. But how do we kind of shift that sort of what feels like a cyclical purgatory type of experience and redirect that energy?
If one thing is that I notice this, especially when I encounter a monastic who's very well trained, who's what I'd consider a good bhikkhu or a good bhikkhuni. If there's something that needs to be done, then with a heart of kindness, without crying and complaining or without any kind of resistance, if it needs to be done, they just go to it and do it and take care of it. So if something is skillful, and if it's not harmful to oneself or another, then the Buddha says you can go ahead and do that thing over and over again. So you can sweep the sidewalk over and over again, day after day, and it's not doing anything bad to your practice. But then the Buddha gave us some like special job to do in order to convert that into something that's forward-leaning to help us to go forward, and that is to have mindfulness and clear comprehension. So bringing that extra feature of awareness, being clear about our intention, and when we have a good an intention which is not harmful to oneself or another, then holding that intention with great clarity, and using the occasion of doing any kind of work as an occasion to be mindful. And that mindfulness then is setting the stage for the growth in wisdom. So that's my answer to that. I think we've used our time. So I want to thank everybody for your patient listening and for your sincerity and your good practice. Let's join together in reciting the our Vandana, the respect for the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. the Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one. I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed one. The teachings completely explained by him. I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.